Hello, everybody on YouTube. Nice to see you. Welcome to the talk. I know that people miss me saying nice to see you, to see you nice. So there it is again. Yeah, welcome to the talk. The title of the talk today is Ramana Maharshi embodied? Is embodiment important for enlightenment, or is it just Western ideas? I feel like I have talked about this before. Or maybe I've done a talk with a similar name, after like 14 years. Yeah, I think it maybe it's 14 years of speaking. You kind of talked about everything. Yes, this is quite a controversial topic, and I hope I can do it justice. Because, I really respect and love Ramana Maharshi. And equally, I really respect all the modern new teachers coming through speaking about embodiment. And I also understand that it's more of a feminine perspective. So yeah, it's a new perspective that women have contributed a lot to. Okay. So let's see if I can do it justice. Okay, the stuck earring amongst my technical stuff. See what comes. So first of all, I think I want to speak about what non-duality actually is before I start bringing in Ramana Maharshi. So yeah, we'll start there. So non-duality, like I've said thousands of times, isn't a certified event. Ramesh Balsaka, my teacher, used to always say this. It's not a certified event. I was very proud of this assertion. So what that means is that there's lots of different interpretations of what enlightenment is. It's not like running 100 meters and you have to run it by like 20 seconds or something to qualify. You can't really mark it and judge it and get everyone to agree on it. It's not like a running a race that is very measurable. It is an unmeasurable thing. And part of the reason why it's unmeasurable is that everybody has different ideas about what it is, and everyone has different experiences for what enlightenment is, which is kind of crazy. You think we'd all come together and be like, let's just like have one enlightenment and agree that that is what the word enlightenment means. everyone's experience is so different. You know, talking about enlightenment is a little bit like talking about, you know, eating or describing food or something, like the sensation of describing food, of eating food. It's an impossibility to get everyone to match on that. And enlightenment is the same thing. It's such a personal thing. You know, if we had like a contest, like everyone had to describe a food, like the taste of a food without saying what it is, and then people had to listen and guess what food that was, you know, I think it would just be such a different thing for everybody. And yeah, this is the same for enlightenment. So what is enlightenment in my terminology? I'm just going to go and make sure that it mutes everyone as they enter the Zoom room. One moment. It's really lovely to see lots of familiar faces in the Zoom room. Mute upon entry. Oh, it is. Yeah. It's just an accident. Yeah, so what I mean by enlightenment, I tend to not use that word, but if I'm going to use that word today in the talk title, what I mean by that word is, I suppose, like the end of the separate self, or what speakers mean by the end of the separate self. Or what people describe as the end of the separate self. And Tony Parsons, he used to call it an energetic expansion, which totally made sense to me after this shift happened here. It felt like it was the teaching or the words that made the most sense, because it felt like I was contracted inside my body, and then it felt like my personal consciousness and my feeling of I am began to grow. It sounds so weird, but it was like they began to expand until they disappeared into everything. And then you could call it what is described by many traditional teachers as like just pure awareness, but awareness without a second. There's no subject, object, almost pure beingness, but not a separate beingness. So it's like the I am grew and became this impersonal I am beingness, and the consciousness grew and became impersonal consciousness, awareness, and they merged together. And that is what that Chit Ananda is. So it's like they fell back in love and they became one, this present, aware beingness, which is all things and no things, and it's not aware of, it's not separate. And what came back was there did come back personal consciousness and a feeling of I am, but they came back as like a shadow, as like a ghost. So what happened was it now feels like my essence is everywhere and nowhere, but yet there is a looking through this body-mind mechanism. And that personal consciousness and that feeling of I am comes and goes with a intensity dependent on how much it's needed for functioning. When there was no personal consciousness or no I am, there was an inability to really function. So just sitting in silence, very basic functioning could happen, but nothing complex. Speaking felt too complex. Like crossing road was way too complex. It was in Bali at the time. And crossing the road, that was not possible without personal consciousness. It was like, how could I tell where I was? I needed some form of reference point. And then as these cars whizzing by, it felt really, possible. And when this Satchitananda happens, there's often lots of experiences of samadhi, where the whole world disappears. So not only the personal consciousness and the I am sense, but also, and the body-mind, but the whole world. And so there's different things to say on that. It begins to get complicated. So basically what I mean by enlightenment in human form is this end of separation. So your consciousness, your personal consciousness and I amness expands into everything else. And there is no longer identification with the personal consciousness or the personal feeling of beingness. They appear in spaciousness. They are not an experience in any way. So they come and go, those personal senses, but they're not an experiencer in any way, and they're not fixed, they're not you. They're there as a functioning. So the awakening, so enlightenment is not being in samadhi all the time. It's not being in the absolute all the time. It's this ability to, so enlightenment in the human form, this ability to function through the body-mind mechanism. And the body-mind mechanism feels like it's on the precipice between nothing and everything, between fullness and emptiness. And then Nisargadatta's quote is, and in between my life unfolds. So in between there is this functioning human, but the human isn't the center of the world anymore. Everything, love, bliss, freedom is. And this person comes and goes with practicality. So it's not staying in samadhi the whole time, like staying in the absolute, where there's absolutely no world, no personal consciousness, like heaven on earth, you could call it. It's and then it's not also the opposite end. The opposite end is complete identification with the person. So you're coming to something in between where the person, the character appears in the experience and it's looked through this body, but this body is no longer the experiencer. The experiencer is this pure awareness. And really, I think that's what I've always felt embodiment is this coming back to this precipice between life and death, between there being a character in order to perform human duties, but that character being extremely empty. So you're kind of like on the verge between no thing and everything. So you're kind of alive and not alive. That sounds weird. Like, yeah. I heard Ramana Krishna and many other teachers like describe it like that to stay in the body and stay alive, they have to have a desire remaining. So there's a tradition in India that if you fully wake up, you go into nirvana, which is beyond enlightenment, and that is when the body dies. So you leave the body. So in order to, once the awakening happens, or this enlightenment happens, then there has to be some form of desire to stay in the body. So Ramana Krishna is known for being greedy, like he liked food. And he said to his wife, because she was embarrassed by him being greedy, she was like, he's enlightened and look how greedy he is. And he said, as soon as I am not interested in food anymore, I will die 3 days later. And that's actually what happened to him. The time he stopped being interested in food, he died 3 days later. And what I feel like that means is that there has to be a desire in order to keep that awareness, or not even keep the awareness, but to keep the body alive. Like so a vague interest in life. There has to be a vague interest in this dream and something in this dream. So other teachers, they describe like this bodhisattva attitude, and that is the desire to come back, to return to the body and return to life in order to save other beings. Yes, there's all different types of this. And so embodiment to me is the ability to be in the world but not of it. So there is a character appearing, there is enough personal consciousness and enough of a feeling of I am in order for action to take place. But it's very thin. And the thinness of it is there's very little interest in it. There's very little interest in that. So freedom, there is much more interested in freedom, in who you truly are, and resting as what you truly are, than the human world and what all the human world has to offer. So it's like you're sitting on the edge of the human world. Everyone else is very interested in the human world, like trying to get all their needs and their wants and everything satisfied. And the enlightened one is very uninterested in it. But yet there is enough to keep them here. And the reason that they're so uninterested in it is because the other humans are looking for freedom in the human story and in time and space and in the world, whereas the enlightened one is absolutely free, is contented in self. So they're not interested in playing all those games anymore, or many of those games anymore. But I feel like there has to be attachment to some of them, otherwise the body would be let go of. And that's what a lot of the scriptures and teachings teach. So Ramana, and like if we just take Ramana for an example, and I hope I can do this justice because I really respect Ramana, and I suspect a lot of people that are listening do as well, because he's kind of such an important figure of bringing non-duality to the West. And he didn't bring it to the West, but his students did. Like he had such an impact in the modern teaching of non-duality. So with Ramana, what I feel like happened is he had this absolute awakening, and it was so deep and so pure. It was at the age of 16. And it was so deep and so pure. He spent many years like basking in the samadhi, and in not really engaging in the human world. So it's almost like he was like very close to the death part, so it's like the human form is on the precipice between nothing and everything. And he was very close to the nothing part for a very long time. And he had very little desire or interest in life, but there was enough. He stayed alive, he didn't die, people helped him. Other people kept him alive for periods. And there must have been something there which also then engaged. It might have been to help other people. So then in his latter life, he came back and he taught. And he was more functional, but still spending many, many hours in samadhi and in silence. He didn't speak so much and lived a very, very simple life, did not live a complex life. There was very little going on there except teaching, eating, and samadhi and silence, and communicating this. So I think he was embodied. I think latterly, yeah. Otherwise he would have died. So latterly there was some interest in the world again. There was something that came, there was some message that came, or some urge that came. I feel like his body had very little to no seeking patterns left. So what happens for a lot of people is that after that shift is that the body purifies. And that is an endless purification in the end until the world stops appearing anymore. But he had very little purification left to do on the body. And that is about releasing seeking energies from the body and releasing old tendencies, old ways of thinking. Some people, after this going to samadhi, when they come back to life, they have to do a lot of that. And when they're doing a lot of that, they're very much in the person again. So often they very much come back to being a person and there is seeking there again. But that is a process of releasing stuff. And then it gets less and less and less that you have to do. So then you really sit on the precipice between nothing and everything. But the body will still purify itself more and more and more and get less seeking patterns and less karmas. And when the old seeking patterns are coming up, sometimes you have to go back into seeking or back into the human world, like more attachment and involvement in the human world in order to release these old stories. Sometimes old characters, old habits, old ways of being present themselves in the world and sort of fish you back in to allow that energy out of the body. I feel though that Ramana Maharshi and Ananda Mahima, that they were really at the end in the sense of they measurably spent many lifetimes as sages, and there's very little seeking patterns left in their bodies, very little things to work out. What I feel happens in modern teaching is that people that have had an awakening and then they go back into life, so they're going back into the personality to work out the seeking patterns. So they're releasing, seeking and shadow stuff. And then they look at people like Ramana Maharshi and other teachers, and then they accuse or think that they're not embodied because they don't speak about or they don't look like all the shadow work that they've done or that they're doing. And sometimes it might be an insecurity from that teacher. It might not be a truth. It might be an old seeking pattern that comes up, and then they accuse these teachers of being like that because they feel embarrassed or ashamed that they're a teacher and that they've got this seeking stuff coming up that Ramana never spoke about. And And it's not always that, it's sometimes also that's what they think because that's what their experience is. So because their experience is that their body is still detoxing lots of things, they turn around and then accuse teachers of like Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta, Ananda Mahima of not being embodied because they think they haven't done that work. Whereas I feel like they were most probably born into this life with very, very little stuff left. Like, so there isn't the work to be done there. And it sometimes comes, I think, from insecurities of other teachers, because the other teachers feel ashamed when they hear like how advanced these teachers are. And that is an old seeking pattern in them, and they listen to these teachers that sound like really perfectly awakened beings, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not like that all the time. And then they get that into their teaching modality, and that becomes a thing. And it can also sometimes come from just students as well, like not looking at the perfection of these teachers and then thinking, I can never live up to that. So then there can also be accusing of them not being embodied and having gone through their shadow work. The reason why I feel like they've done their shadow work, not done it in this life, maybe in last lives, and the reason I think that is because of the way they describe the absolute and how close it is to them. If you've, like, so when the person is experiencing lots of love and bliss, this means that they're very close to this precipice between nothing and everything. They're very close. There's very thin I am there in personal consciousness. So it's like the I am and the personal consciousness is a very, very thin, like ghost-like. So what you're experiencing is this Sat Chit Ananda, this perfect, brilliant love. Consciousness meeting beingness, and then Ananda being bliss. And so when the teachers are describing that, and also when they speak with a certain energy, you can hear it coming through them. And that they are spending what seems like all their teaching time there, like with this very little sense of self there, very little attachment to this world there. And if they were going through like processing of the shadow, that would be coming and going. As the shadow came up, the bliss and the love would become more veiled. And so therefore their teachings would reflect that, because you're only going to teach and speak what you're feeling in that moment. Whereas Ananda Mahima, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Ramana Maharshi are always including that in their teachings. This love, this bliss, this freedom, this stillness. So my feeling towards them is that they are really in the precipice between nothing and everything. And that can only happen if they've done the embodiment stuff, if they've done the shadow stuff, if they've burnt away that karma. If they hadn't burnt away that karma, they would be more in the human world, and there would be old seeking patterns burning out, and they would be feeling the discomfort of that. And they wouldn't be talking about love and bliss unless they are sociopaths. And that would, like they're purposely lying in the moment. But I don't think that's true at all, because when I listen to them, I really feel this like immense stillness. And I really don't think that's absolutely not what they are. Yeah. So just to be clear about me, as where I stand on that is I can have old seeking patterns come up, but it's less and less as the years go on, less and less and less. So this is why I feel like I can judge it now, after 14 years of teaching. I can, and and can understand that. Yeah. I did a lot of work beforehand, like a lot of karma was burnt away beforehand. And then also as a child, I think I was born into this life very open already. So afterwards, there was still seeking patterns and old karmas that came up. But even they never really drew me far into that, that was, yeah. Even though there were some really painful ones, it wasn't. I never really felt like I went totally back into the human world. So yes, I 100% think that Ramana Maharshi is embodying this subject. I think if he was just hanging out in the absolute in order to avoid things, it would be cold and he wouldn't be speaking about love. The same with Ananda Mahima and the same with Nisargadatta Maharaj. And I feel like they would be thrust into the fire. Life, if there was stuff there, life would bring it up in some way. And that would reflect in their teachings. Their teachings would change. They wouldn't consistently be speaking about this subject, they would change dependent on that seeking, burning energy that was coming up. Like obviously they change the way they speak over the years, that's natural, but they keep coming back to this message of stillness is the truth. And the teacher's burning loads of old samskaras, then they'll go into all these deviations. So yes, just to say one more time, 100%, I think they're embodied and enlightened. And I think that they're the most advanced beings there's been on the planet in long times. In long time. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, you can put your hand up. I think we got some written questions. Yeah. Can you tell about unifying energy and consciousness, or realizing their underlying oneness, practices and or inquiries? This is from JT. Sorry, someone just sent me a really funny message, a personal message. And I just saw that and now I'm so to have a giggle about that. Can you tell about unifying energy and consciousness, or realizing their underlying oneness, practices and or inquiries? I don't know what you mean by all of those words, JT. Unifying energy and consciousness, or realizing underlying oneness. I get the sense like you're asking about freedom, but just putting it in words that I don't typically use. So, pardon me. I'm so sorry that I'm burping, but I haven't got the best of stomach. So all those empaths and psychics that come, I know that lots of people that tune in are psychic and empaths. And one thing they like to do is they like to resonate with my energy. I do have slight gut problems. So if you're now feeling like you got some gas going on, I'm sorry. You're just mirroring and reflecting me. So apologize about all the gas coming up. I don't think Ramana Maharshi would say that in the middle of his talk. Actually, maybe he would, but maybe he wouldn't laugh about it so much. Okay. So underlying oneness, I mean, that's an assumption that underlying oneness, that oneness is underlying and isn't obvious. Like, isn't the obvious loud thing here. So, is oneness underlying? That is the question. Or is it the most obvious thing there is in the room that is missed? Because the mind is full of complexities. Thoughts are full of complexities. Ideas are full of complexities. Knowledge is full of complexities. What isn't full of complexities is this. This is so obvious, but unseeable by the mind, which is time-based, because we're speaking about timelessness. So the mind is in past and future. Oneness is right here, right now. You know, what is the distance between you and me? The distance only belongs in time, and time is an imagined phenomena. It's not a reality. I mean, why do you think there's problems with all the calculations of time? Because it's not a reality. So, you know, if you go around the world in an aeroplane, you lose time. Where does it go? That can only happen if time wasn't reality. And I don't mean lose time as in time changes. I mean you literally lose time. Seconds, I think. Or maybe our aeroplanes aren't fast enough yet. No, I think so. If you're like at 500 miles an hour, I think you lose time if you were to go around the world. That's crazy, eh? And it's because time isn't reality. We made it up. It's not a reality. So what is the distance between you and me? Space only exists with time. So you look at me, and who is looking at me? Who is looking at me? The mind, which is time-based and imagination-based, imagines that there is a person, a subject in that body, looking at Lisa, which is an object, but that's all in time. That's not in reality. What is happening prior to that? And what is happening prior to that, which is phenomenal, is awareness, pure awareness, which is what you are, is everywhere simultaneously and is all things. So your perception is actually my skin, my nose, my words, my eyes. Your perception is everything. Everything. Your perception is everything. It's not even your perception, because who would be yours? It is perception is everything. There is no distance and space in perception. That is an imagined phenomena. So you've got this personal consciousness that can focus on me. And personal consciousness is necessary for the functioning of humans. However, there is an identification that happens with the personal consciousness and a belief that the personal consciousness is you. And then often there's this whole story and this ego which is attached to the personal consciousness. So it's like, I am looking over here because I came into the room and I want to, and I'm going to learn about non-duality and become enlightened. Oh, but she is not a good enough or adequate teacher. She is more interested in the glitteriness of her rings and her jewelry than she is in non-duality and communicating this subject. I go to another teacher that can communicate to me better. Like, so there's this ego that comes in there and then believes that is who you are. That isn't who you are. That isn't who you are. That isn't. That's the lie. That personal consciousness with that bubble of you in it is appearing in awareness. So look at this now. So you have this personal consciousness that you're moving, and in that movement there is the voice that's telling you what you like about me or not, or where you've come from or what you're going to do, and the images of that. And then you put your personal consciousness on me, and you believe that you are a subject there looking at an object. But notice that something knows that personal consciousness. So your personal consciousness is focused on me, but look to see there is awareness of all the room behind me. And that isn't part of the personal consciousness. Your personal consciousness is focused on me. So there is an awareness that knows all of that. And that awareness is still and unmoving. What is moving is your focus and the apparent world that it's moving through. Awareness is always still, always there, and prior to you. So awakening is an energetic shift from being that personal consciousness and in that bubble of personal consciousness to that awareness which is prior to that and all things. So it's not prior and behind, although that is how it's taught, because that's got relevance, that's important, but it's actually not behind. It's actually in my lips, in my nose, in my words, in my seat. It's everywhere. This is the most simple and obvious truth there is, but the mind is looking for complexities. The way this happens, this realization, is through the end of seeking. And seeking is the attachment to time and space, and the belief that you will find this pure awareness, what you're looking for, in the dream of you. In the dream of you. So you're looking for it in this or that, even in practices. I'll give you practices, but your personal consciousness and your storyteller then believes, I am someone that is going to do these practices and wake up. Who are you right now? Not that. Not that. So what happens through the process of awakening is that these desires, these seeking patterns have to be burnt through, have to be seen through. Not all of them, but enough in order to break the attachment to the person. And the seeking is the belief that freedom comes in money, in sex, in feelings, in good feelings, in enjoyment, and is taken away by pain, by sadness, by grief, by losing money, by losing home, by losing family. So the practice that I recommend is when you have lots of very heavy and dark emotions and uncomfortableness and seeking and pain coming up, do somatic body work. You can look that up online. You can go on my website and find different somatic practitioners. Somatic work includes breath work, body work, singing, bhajans, kirtan, yoga. Somatic work with a therapist like Peter Levine, insanely intelligent work. There's different somatic therapists where you connect stories to the feelings in the body. So when you're in lots of suffering, you do this. When that suffering is reduced, then you practice putting the personal consciousness in itself. And what that means is, instead of letting the personal consciousness get lost and absorbed in all the thoughts and the stories that you're telling yourself, you put it in itself. So you break the personal consciousness from following images and stories and move it back to the feeling of the I am, or into itself. Put consciousness in consciousness. But you do both of these practices knowing that the one that does them is an illusion, and that one that's doing them isn't going to awaken. That one that is doing them does not exist. But most traditions suggest that first of all, you have to settle down the seeking to a reasonable level so there can be this movement back to something that's inherently in your experience. When the seeking is very strong, it's like the film of you is so loud, you're so consumed in it. You have to make the story more gentle, rather than like, it's more gentle. You don't have to get rid of all the seeking patterns. It's just to the point where there can be this awakening, and then after that awakening there can be some years where you carry on processing that shadow stuff, and then it will begin to settle. But it's to this point where there is enough gaps in you. The Indian traditions recommend lots of very intelligent practices and bodywork practices. There's also intelligent Western practices which help settle down the body-mind mechanism. I like talk therapies, but they are very limited. You have to have a good conceptualization of yourself, but they'll stay in the mental activity of you if the therapist doesn't begin to take it into somatic work. So that's the recommendation. I am just going to go to the toilet as I'm having some gas issues, and I will come back in a moment. And yeah, and I'll take the people's questions with their hand up. Okay.
Hey Lisa,
Hey, Darshan.
I really like your introduction today.
Ah,
And I also thought about this topic before. and I never really knew how to put it in my own words, but when you just said what you said today, I was like, yeah, I totally agree. This was also my observation when I've encountered different teachers. Um, yeah, I would totally agree. So it was really nice to hear it from you in your own words because I really couldn't put it in words, but it was also this kind of similar feeling because I've heard different opinions on this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I don't really have a question today. I just wanted to share it because I really liked it and also wanted to say thank you for your work.
Yeah. Pleasure, Darshan.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Darshan. Yeah, Graham, you can unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, my heart is racing like crazy.
So the smartest thing that you can do with desire is just to use it. You can desire in the end is always a desire for love. Even if that be desire for food or desire for new job or for money, it's always underlying. The movement is the seeking for love or the avoidance of pain, the avoidance of fear. So desire is always at its core wanting love. So whatever desire you have, you can always use it to fall down into what you truly want, which is love. And when you fall down into what you truly want is love, so when you can use the desire to come into what you truly want is love, not the object, then you can begin to feel the love of what you are. Because in every desire that you have, there is always the love of what you are. You can't long for something you don't know. So you can't long for an orange if you've never tasted an orange. So in longing for an orange, there is a knowing of an orange, there is a remembering, there's a feeling of an orange. Maybe orange is a bit too boring, maybe chocolate bar. like I don't know what foods you like, but like a chocolate cake, it's like when you go to buy the chocolate cake, you're like almost tasting it, like you feel it. So it's the same with love. Like the love is there. So whatever whatever you desire is always a desire for love, and the love is there at the base, and it's manipulating it, like using that desire for love and coming and sitting in that love and evoking love. It's a practice that they've done for thousands of years in India. In India, it's more connected with like bhakti, tantra, like the more like feminine aspects of the teaching. And so in tantra, like tantra can be sexuality in India, but very rarely. It's often this more practice of bhakti, where you're using an object that you love to evoke love in yourself. So say if you loved Kali, or if you loved Pranya Pramamata, I can't say her name suddenly. So if you loved one of these goddesses, or you loved your guru, for example, then you use that love to evoke it in yourself. So you love the idol of Kali to feel love. Because often when we're in the separate person, it's almost like love is cut off from us. So we use it to feel love. But then you can start, when you're by yourself, imagining Kali to evoke love in you. When you're out on the bus or something, or in a really like unfriendly place or something you really don't like, you use the image of Kali to evoke love and to change the energy in you. And that love is like a gateway to what you truly are, is of the love of self. The self is love.
Yeah, your photo, your video is like glitching a lot. I don't know if it's me or if it's you. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But
was the audio glitching?
No, the audio I heard perfectly, and it was
Okay.
so on point. Honestly, I was gonna ask you about bhakti and surrender, and it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the video. Maybe other people can comment in the chat who it is. But I can't fix it if it's me. It's your video feed, Lisa. I can't fix that. I actually have fiber, I think. But you know what it's like. If lots of people are using it, maybe it doesn't work so.
Anyway, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Can see Brian clicking away there. Don't know what you're laughing at, but I'll just join in. So, yeah, what just suddenly felt funny is that, you know, when we're on, this is a very interesting gender divide. When we're on the Sunday talks and it's recorded live to YouTube, often men ask questions. And when we're on the talk, because I also do some non-recorded talks, it's often women ask the question. So it's a really interesting divide that happens. like the men are more prepared to like go for it online, and the women are more like reserved when the women know they're not being recorded, which is interesting because normally we do divide sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so Lee, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Lee.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
I don't know if I have an interest in being recorded or not, and I'm usually reluctant to ask questions, but I end up pushing through. But when I was last online with you a few weeks ago, which was recorded, I asked you something about wanting to rest in presence, for example, when I'm walking the dog, and I seem to have resistance toward being able to fall back into presence. And your answer was something like, notice what is already there, which was very helpful. But it reminded me of this show, this Netflix show called Dark, a great show, where the teenage protagonist discovers he can travel back in time, and he's trying to fix or undo some tragedies that have occurred. But in his going back and trying to fix them, he ironically ends up causing the tragedies that he's trying to prevent. And he's always talking about finding the glitch in the matrix. And he finally realizes that he is the glitch in the matrix, that his going back is causing these issues. And when that happened on the show, I realized, oh my God, I'm the glitch in the matrix. My looking for presence is preventing its discovery.
Yeah.
But I seem not to always be, I seem to be misidentified as the ego who is looking for, I'll just say looking for, that energy of looking for is my experience of the ego. So the point is that rather than looking for, I should recognize, as you pointed out, what is already present. But I seem to be mistaken about who it is I am, and I seem to go back and forth between presence versus looking for.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, the good thing about the good thing about the looking for freedom or the seeking for freedom is that along the way, it's going to tidy up the cage of Lee. Like it's going to pop a lot of Lee's illusions. So Lee is going to become a less of a person, which that sounds terrible, you know. Normally you go to put things to become more of a person, but he's going to become less. He's going to lose things along the way. So that's the good thing about the Lee seeking for freedom. And this isn't the negative thing. This is part of the process, is the recognition in that Lee is being experienced. Lee is not the experiencer. And that in Lee seeking to be free, it's like this pull and this interest in a dream in time of you, of me becoming free, of me doing things. And the whole time there is something which is experiencing Lee. And that is what the waking up is. It's waking up out of that Lee that's doing things in space and time to this presence that's inherently here. Just if you were like having a lucid dream at night, what happens sometimes in the lucid dream is that you're dreaming and it's all really real and someone's chasing you and this is happening and that is happening. And then there is this moment where you suddenly realize that you're dreaming and that the dream isn't the truth. What the truth is the experiencing of the dream. It's the one that's dreaming the dream. And then that fundamentally changes the dream. It doesn't necessarily stop the dream. Sometimes you can wake up, but often there is a resting, a relaxation, because you realize that you're the dreamer of the dream. And then the dream begins to get less and less tense because it's not taken as serious anymore. So don't give up seeking. I wouldn't give up seeking, you know, because you can't give up seeking. To try to give up seeking would be another seeking. Just be wise in the seeking. And then this continuous remembering that that isn't who you are. So being wise in the seeking means like use the seeking to settle the person down. You know, use wisdom, use the Indian wisdom, the wisdom from the West to make Lee more comfortable. Stop him having such strong impulses to do things or to have things. So he becomes more and more comfortable and is going less and less out of himself, and he can take more and more pain and pleasure without grasping onto it and holding onto it. And then the whole time that's happening, recognizing again and again that that is appearing in a space that is watching it, and that that one that's doing that isn't a separate doer, isn't a separate person that is doing things and getting things. It's not who you are. It's an experience happening in who you are that's coming and going.
Sometimes I find I am resting in presence or as presence, and I'll just be resting there, and all of a sudden there is this thought coming up that looking for, like wondering, is this it? Is this presence? And of course, then it goes away. But sometimes there's a recognition of that thought or seeking presence coming up, and I ignore it, or it is ignored. but other times it seems to grasp for my attention, and which is ironic because I'm resting in presence, and yet this energy is coming up looking for presence, which is already there.
Mm.
So it almost seems like I go back and forth with what I'm identifying with as either presence or someone who's looking for it.
Very normal. So it's, if there's any stories that come up with that, like it shouldn't be happening or that I'm getting something wrong, like it's just recognizing those stories. The oscillation is very normal. Sometimes people have expectation of this being easier than it is, because it is absolute simplicity. It's who you are. But if you, what's happening is you're challenging a very strong energy that wants to get freedom from time. And so there is this, it's a natural occurrence that there is going to be a breaking of that and then going back into that, breaking of that and going back into that. And it's allowing that movement. And as you begin to allow that movement and not exactly battle with it, just recognizing and discernment that it's happening, the more that you kind of allow it in the experiencing, the less there will be going back into the person. The more you beat yourself up or tell yourself there's something wrong with the situation, the more you're believing in it and going into a story. So it's like allowing that movement to happen of somebody seemingly resting and then going back, resting and going back. And the whole time there is the stillness that's here. You know, so, and then this is what Nisargadatta calls discernment, like discerning, not true, not true, not true, not true.
It seems like it shouldn't be difficult to realize who I really am, meaning if there's a thought or an interpretation, that is obviously not stillness or silence.
Mm.
Yet but just by mental habit, I get caught up on it, or I seem to get caught up in it.
It's not actually, yeah, it is mental habit, but the thing that's really strong is the energetic push that believes time will give you love or time will bring you fear. So these are two seeking opposites. The love is pleasure and the fear is pain. So pain will take away freedom and love will give you freedom. And that's the actual strong energy behind it. And that is karmic, and that has gone on for millions of lifetimes, and that is incredibly powerful dream. So it seems intellectually it's not tough, but you're maybe doing one of the toughest things there is. And at the same time, in me communicating that as a story, don't take it too seriously, because if you begin to identify with that story, then that becomes a reality for you. And we're trying to like get rid of realities. But I'm also trying to get rid of the idea that you know, that it should happen today and that it should be easy. Like it's this like self-compassion, you know, that for everyone, it's taken actually millions of lifetimes to get to this point where there's a readiness to challenge pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain is everything to animals. That's the indicator of how to live the life. Like we're doing something really crazy here. We're challenging pleasure and pain. That pleasure is you and freedom, and pain is taking away of freedom. So we've identified with pleasure and pain, and they've become our realities. It's incredibly powerful hypnosis.
It also strikes me as funny that when I was a child growing up, I couldn't wait to grow up to an adult so I could get out of the house and stop listening to my mother telling me what to do or what to think. And it seemed like an imposition on my freedom But now, day after day, I listen to this voice in my head telling me what to think and do.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's got lots of qualities of your mother. Taken on board her, or it's rejected her and taken on the opposite, maybe.
Well, thank you for being here for us all.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Okay, Frederic, you can unmute yourself. Hey.
Hi,
Hi.
nice meeting you, Lisa.
Yeah, you too.
I briefly saw you at Angelo's retreat in August,
Yeah.
and it could have been nice to talk to you, but it was a silent retreat. Lately, I've been experiencing kind of expanded states of being, I would say, and when I'm there, I'm very self-aware and centered. And it's great, and it's a great practice. But I don't know what I want to ask, but it's like I have this issue with chronic fatigue. I've been chronically fatigued for like many years,
Hmm.
and I have physical symptoms in my head on a regular basis. And
How many years has that been?
chronic fatigue has been maybe like 20 years, and then I have like symptoms, chronic infections, like leading to symptoms in the head, like brain fog for maybe 10 years. And so I'm in that state, but I keep like having struggle with with those health issues, and I'm thinking, oh, but it's like maybe if I wake up or the more shadow work I do, then in the future I will be healthy, and then so I don't know what it is, like this kind of an attachment to. There's a longing, of course, for being healthy. Um, but there's some kind of attachment here. Like I don't know really what it is, but it's like it's like yeah, I don't know really what is to say. It's like maybe maybe it's like preventing me to be fully present. I don't know if it's like the issue, or if there's like some kind of like attachment to be willing to avoid the pain associated to the chronic illness.
I don't know if I'm the best to speak on this. I know someone very close to me that had chronic fatigue for 15 years. And they were also going through a waking up process as well. And one thing I realized through, knowing them and having contact is that it's very hard for someone that doesn't have chronic fatigue to imagine what that's like, and to like guide through that. And the other person close to me has managed to get over the chronic fatigue and has also had non-dual awakenings. And if you text in the group after, it might be that they're willing to speak with you.
Mm.
Might be. I don't know though. They're not public in any way, and they and so because they went through the waking up process simultaneously while having chronic fatigue,
Mm.
it might be a better match. From my perspective as their teacher, is that is that nothing in the dream can affect who you truly are. But when the chronic fatigue is happening, because it can be very uncomfortable, like the brain fog. I've witnessed that well from this other person. It can be very hard and very painful to function in life. And when that pain is happening, and to have relationships, when that pain is happening, then there can be this immense seeking and avoidance, happening.
Yeah.
So that can be the involvement in the story, because it's such an uncomfortable experience that's happening, and that experience will get less and more throughout the day and throughout the weeks. I'm sure sometimes it's worse than others. That was what I experienced witnessing it. But in the end, awakening is prior to that. It is this freedom that is prior to that. But when it's happening, it might trigger seeking, which then pulls you back into the story. So my recommendation would be, if you can speak to this person, if they're willing to. So in the Telegram group, just write a message, because I forget, and then I will put you two in contact, and maybe they're willing to speak with you.
Yeah, I can do that for sure. Thanks for that. And then I guess the idea is to relax as much as I can.
Yeah, that's the
in,
answer.
and even in the tiredness, and it's like, and in the symptoms, and just be with them and be in the body, and without going into the
total acceptance. My experience of watching it, though, was that was impossible for the person to do, because it was so painful. So what they did, although I don't want to expose them online because it's not my story to tell, but they did these certain bodywork techniques, which, when it was really painful, it helped relax the system, because when it's so painful, the urge is to get out of the body, and in a way it is too painful to do somatic work in that time, because it's the brain fog and the dizziness, and the can be sickness as well, like the bowels can get all agitated, and
and but there are also different levels of chronic fatigue, and some people can be like bedridden, for instance, most of the time, which is not my case. I still have like from an external perspective, I still have like a functional life, I would say, but still the symptoms are still there. But I can most of the time I have enough energy to I believe to be self-aware and to be present with those symptoms. It's really not going in the storylines.
And totally surrendering to them, and not like going into storylines and trying to avoid it through imagination. Avoid it by imagining something else, or another reality, or what you would like it to be, or victim stories. Like really trying to be present to what is happening, and keeping this awareness of the emptiness of everything, which is not affected by any of this, and the fullness of it all. So you're not disassociating, but at the same time you're also aware of this emptiness which is holding everything, and which is effortless. So you're not disassociating from the pain in the body, like the pain in the body is like a gateway to it, but there's also this deep knowing of that. But yeah, I feel like you're really in the right direction with it all.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and just to make sure, and I think it's going to be the last thing, by avoiding imagination, if it's what you said, it's yeah, it's like not imagining that it could be better, for instance. That's what you mean, right? No, it's
Yeah.
because it's a type of storyline on the opposite side, right?
Yeah, of it being better,
yeah,
or what you've done wrong, or what you're doing wrong in this moment, or like how yesterday what did you do different yesterday because it was better yesterday, like what like all these kind of comparisons. So it's like really trying to settle into the actual experience than believing these stories.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Frederic. Please reach out and put that message, because I will forget. So that was part of the awakening that happened here. I lost a lot of my memories. So
Well, it's yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, William, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Yeah, so I want to ask, like, do you feel that, like, when one becomes sort of more and more empty and sort of like dissolving more and more, like karma, let's say, yeah? Do you feel like that is kind of like a natural, I'm so sorry for my bad English because I'm from Sweden, so I'm kind of like struggling.
You're using really well.
The English language. Yeah, thank you. I hope I will make myself understandable. Yeah. So do you like feel that there is this kind of like natural orientation or interest towards sort of like persons or places where there might be not the same level of emptiness that kind of like attracts itself toward places where it can sort of like help out to dissolve karma from others. That because of course, from one standpoint, there is no me and you, and I mean, isn't there kind of like a natural maybe movement, I guess, towards this I don't know, towards people maybe and situations where it can do some
Aid.
aid, exactly.
Yeah, it can be. It can be for two different reasons that happens. It can be because there's dissolving old seeking in the body-mind mechanism. So sometimes there is a movement towards situations which burn old karmas and old seeking patterns in the body-mind mechanism. And then the other movement, so that's one, and then the other movement can be because when you become empty of self, they say, in order to stay in these bodies, there has to be certain desires left, and one desire can be to help other people. You need certain desires, otherwise the body will leave. You'd just dissolve into samadhi the whole time. There needs to be something which brings you back into life, and sometimes that can be the helping of other people. So it could be one or the other, and it can be that sometimes it oscillates. Sometimes there's burning up of your personal, of that body-mind mechanism seeking patterns, and sometimes it can be because that's the last desire that body has, or the last few desires that body has, which keeps it in this world.
Yeah, like you said, like exactly. It's not black or white. It can be kind of like a dance, exactly, between both. Yeah. Simultaneously, yeah.
Because otherwise, if there's no desires left or no in the person, then you would just stay in samadhi the whole time and you'd let the world go. So there
Yeah.
has to be something that brings back to the world.
But that is the thing, because I feel like when I'm by myself, my whole experience is kind of like totally different. But then when I am with other people, I feel like my experience is becoming more like what they are experiencing.
Yeah.
And it feels like, and I have had some struggle with that, but I'm starting to kind of like
Yeah.
getting on board with it. And
Yeah, there can be, so
yeah,
there's different
sorry.
things that can happen as you become more empty yourself. And one of them can be mirroring. And the mirroring can be in different ways. One of them could be like a psychic empath, where you go into environments and you just feel everything that's in the environment. But you can also become psychic in different ways. And then you can also just mirror. So whatever the other person is, you just mirror them. So if the other person is angry, you are angry. If the other person is sad, you're sad. There can be this other way you can just go into the other person's body and just know exactly what they feel and what's happening. There's all these different things, and everybody, my mechanism gets different qualities to it.
Yeah.
And none
I
of
get
them
that,
are
but
like
yeah.
these. None of them, like when I speak them, because we're not used to them in our society, they sound really dramatic and special. But I think it's a very natural way of being. Is when you're empty, you're really listening to the environment.
Yeah, but don't you, is it, would you say that also that your experience is, as you have had your big shift, that
Yeah.
after that you can, like, in your experience, without any thoughts or anything, you can like just, it was more intimate with whatever was
Yeah.
in your space. You can
Yeah.
like became that, whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
And because you have no like filters or no
Yeah.
armor or no
Yeah.
defenses.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you, so I don't know how to, yeah, so wouldn't you say that, I don't really know how to explain it, but wouldn't you say that it kind of like is yeah, yeah, that you become more intimate with whatever is going on?
Yeah.
And that is sort of like I mean, maybe for some people that can be a process as well, right? To
Yeah,
kind of like
totally.
be on board with that, right?
It was totally a process for me, because I didn't realize in the beginning that I was also taking on, if I was in front of someone, I was also taking on other people's wants and desires. So
Yeah.
say if I'm in front of someone that wants chocolate cake, then I would feel like I want chocolate cake. Whereas I'm just empty. I don't want anything, you know? So
Yeah.
and that was a process in itself, like to work that out, because it doesn't come with a manual and be like, okay, so now you're empty. You're going to just reflect back or feel other people's stuff. And then you're still going to have stuff in yourself which can vibrate or fight that at points. So this can be really confusing. And it is a process of recognizing these different things and discerning. And it's not like everybody gets the same. You'll get some teachers that don't have that at all, it seems. And some teachers that are or some people, not even teachers, but people who've had awakening, are so sensitive. So yeah, it was a massive process for me to work that out, that I would be sitting by myself, have no desire, and then someone would come in my presence, and then there would suddenly be desire, and then I would do it, and then be like, what was that? You know, this kind of, yeah, so very interesting. And anything that's left in Lisa, like, or any stories get burned up with that, you know, in relation to that. And I think this is happening with people that aren't, that are identified as well. They're going in and out. Oh, have I lost you?
You lost me? No, I don't think so.
No. So people that even have got identity, they're going in and out of that a bit as well. You know, because everyone, even when somebody's identified, they're also having times where that's beginning to fall away. So then when you're interacting, like, there is this crossover of energy between people that's happening.
Yeah, but
Just
did it kind of
becomes
like,
more aware, it just becomes more obvious after awakening.
yeah, totally. But did you find so did it become more stabilized with time for you? Sort of, yeah.
Totally.
Ah, okay. So it's yeah, exactly. Huh.
In the beginning, there was a lot of confusion around it and not understanding. So it took time and being around different people to understand the different colors of people and understand how to use it. Still process. I mean, that's a really big one, like that. If you've got that, that's a really like big one. And what makes it very difficult is if your stuff is still coming up with it. You know, if you're still rejecting it or not wanting it or like trying to stop it or something, or fighting with it in some way. So yeah, it totally stabilized through time and through understanding, and then recognizing, you know, recognizing it very obviously.
Yeah, maybe processing that resistance with time as well. You know, the karma from the self that is left, of course. The seeking, of course. As well can dissolve with time. And maybe then it can become more stabilized and more easier to hold.
Discern what's happening,
And discern, maybe,
And move away from things very quickly when you realize that it's a very big energy that you're in front of, because sometimes you have to really move away from it, otherwise it's too much for the body to process. So discern these things.
And I kind of like work as a therapist and have this big group sessions with people who have like big addiction issues.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, I'm quite intimate with that energy every day. And that's also like kind of like a practice for me to kind of hold that, you know. It's but I can also feel the other side of it is that I can sort of feel what is relevant in the moment for that, you know, person.
Totally,
Individuals, you know.
You have really insider's view. What I find, if you're going to work with people in groups and you are like this and have this tendency, you have to do so much self-care. And what I mean by so much self-care is moving away from other energies into just your own energy for long periods. So, and that includes being online, because if you are like that when you're online and when you listen to someone's voice or you watch someone, you're gonna do with everything.
Absorb everything.
Yeah. So you've got to find places, and that includes if you're in the city and you're in a city for a month. You know, so if I'm doing a retreat and I'm in a city for a month, finding places in there where you can really. And then you go back into, I can't tell you, you know what I mean?
I get it.
And so there's things that I've learned, like this is just going to sound madness to other people, but things that I've learned, things like if you go to a hotel, taking the top floor. You know, like, I don't know, that sounds really mad, but being up higher helps in a city. Okay. You know, like, so not having people above you. So what's around you, and it's like it sounds so mad to people that I would take a corner room in the top floor of a hotel, which might be really expensive, like, but I just know that I have to do that if I'm going to work with groups. And then it's like, you know, you're watching for places and where you can go and just because if you are around people, you know, then and that's your thing, then you got to really be able to discern these two differences. So if you're doing groups, you need periods in the day to move away from that. So say if I'm doing a retreat and I'm doing like 4 sessions a day, so maybe like 5 hours a day, what I'm doing is I'm just in my break listening to music, but very particular music, because music also has energy, and just sitting in silence and maybe doing stretching or breath work. Then I go back to the group. I can't socialize with the group, maybe a tiny bit, then going back and doing the work and then out again. And that's what I can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's just recognizing that if you're going to work with a group of energy, which is a really powerful thing and really beautiful, you just have to really balance it the other way. So when I'm when I'm around less people, then I can maybe then do a bit more online work or a bit more other things. Whereas if I'm doing 5 hours a day with group work, I have to really go the other way in my own time.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, yeah, but it is yeah, yeah, I get it.
And the funny thing is right, is what's funny is that people sometimes, I think, when we have these sorts of conversations, they might think or project that we've got specialness or attachment to that. But I don't know if you've been through the process of where you really wish you didn't have that. Like, where you're like, I really wish I could not hear these things or see these things. But you like, so there's this process of acceptance that you have to go through. So for people that are listening, where you might think that we're in a specialness talk, we most probably both recognize that both of us have been like, oh, please, couldn't I have just got another city? Like, this one is so intense. Like, like
totally.
city, is like magical power. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a magical power. I feel like it's a normal power. It's just when we're identified, we can't hear these things.
yeah,
So I don't think that William's in like a specialness story or I'm in a specialness story, because we both recognize that that's a lot. It's a lot sometimes.
it is a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I don't know. It's I find that practice as well helps.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, body
you
work.
know,
And it's also
body work.
it's a really, really beautiful thing if you're bringing it to groups. It's a really, because it goes two ways. So I mean, it's ultimately only one way, but it's also a really beautiful quality as well. And I won't go too much into the beautifulness of it, but it's also a real gift as a speaker and working in groups as well. Not only do you have like an intimate access to what's happening for them,
Yeah,
you also have the ability to communicate that stillness, because it goes both ways.
exactly. Yeah, it's quite magical, but it's also yeah, very important to have a stable practice and to really like
Yeah.
you are saying that, like that one really has a yeah, a good stable practice to uh, stabilize oneself
Yeah.
with. Yeah, but and especially I found that when it's you know, when there is a lot of people and there is a lot of things going on, and it feels like you kind of like using yourself as a sort of like yeah, you're the tool, right? This body, at least you're using your own body as a tool.
Yeah, totally.
So it yeah, it can be quite intense. Yeah, so yeah, but okay, but thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just one of the things that I do a lot of is chanting. So this really,
Yeah, me too.
like,
Yeah.
it's really,
Me too. Like the whole. You can ask my spouse. Yeah, I'm using it a lot actually, and I'm using it in my sort of like group room before the groups as well,
yeah,
and also like cleanse, environment or whatever we want to call it.
perfect.
So yeah, I find it as well. I'm using it all the time, and as you were referring to as well, I'm kind of like I can feel as well like how this energy, even from the chanting, can transmit as well in the room and to people, and they don't really maybe know what's going on, but that's not important.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I find that very helpful as well. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So, but yeah, maybe it's easier as one kind of like maybe yeah, stabilizing oneself in the practice more and more. I actually that is my experience as well, that it becomes actually easier and easier in one way, even though there is a sort of like period where one yeah, of course, have this not conflict, but kind of like this ambivalence before one starts to stabilize in this new way of experiencing everything, because everything's so much more intimate.
So much, yeah.
So, but I guess one could call it that one all that one needs is just I don't know, fate maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Okay, sorry. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Oh, nice. Okay, Buddy Dharma, you can unmute yourself. Hey.
Hello, Lisa.
Hey, Buddy Dharma. Somebody's in bed.
Yeah, what time is it? It's already after midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually wanted to share this already weeks ago, but I completely forgot. Before I went to Australia, I was in Germany on a yoga festival to record some satsangs. And then I thought, I'm also going to do something a bit more active, maybe listen to some music. And then I checked out who's going to play there. And then I was like, oh, on Saturdays, the Love Keys are playing. And I've remembered them from your satsang.
Yeah.
So I checked them out. It was super weird because I had nothing to do with them. The only connection was due to your satsangs. And it was a little bit like it was more like Lisa satsang than the Love Keys. But it was really good. They were actually not doing concerts anymore because they broke up. And it was the first concert, I don't know after how many years. It was really good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This was in Berlin, the concert?
No, that was, I don't remember the name of the city, but it was in the Yoga Vidya ashram in Germany, in the bigger one. Yeah, they always do like a yoga festival each year. And yeah, they were also playing there. So super funny. She, like the main singer, like she's in Germany traveling right now. And she also does, she's also singing mantras while others do a yin yoga class. I also found it super funny because when we've been in Berlin, you also had yin yoga embedded in the retreat.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like yin yoga. That's my favorite yoga.
Yeah. She's really good, like also live. I think you would enjoy it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, send me her name. I don't know. I only know her as Love Keys, but I don't know what I would look up for her. Just her. Maybe I can look up woman singer of the Love Keys, her name.
Yeah, her name is Alea. I don't remember the second name, but my brother also has her website. Send it to
Okay.
him. Can just send it to you.
Yeah. For some reason, my eyes are becoming sore. So funny the way energy works. Who knows that that happens?
Do you usually have sore eyes?
No.
Yeah, I have often.
Are your eyes getting burnt out there, you know, because it's so... Oh no, it's their winter, isn't it? But September can be very sunny. You know, I used to get sunburn in my eyes in Australia.
Hmm.
I think that's enough for today. You always seem to be right at the end, Bodhidharma, of the talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. Hmm. Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what we're laughing at, but I'm just going to go with it. I'm all in for a laugh.
Hmm.
Thanks. Okay. So yeah, thank you everyone. So I'm just going to end the YouTube, and then if you're in the Zoom meeting, you can stay in the Zoom meeting, and then I come round and just say hello to everybody, or just acknowledge everyone that's in the room. I really love it if you can turn on your videos so I can see you. But I'm just going to say goodbye to YouTube. 1 second. So stay in the Zoom room. So yeah, if you're in YouTube and you want to join, join the Zoom meetings. So yeah, come in and be able to ask questions, and also sometimes during the week we do some satsangs which aren't recorded. Then you can find out how to do that on my website under the live stream. So to everybody in YouTube, I really, really wish you everything. Yeah, not one or two or three things, but every God bless thing. Yeah. Bye.